just never hire anybody like yourself. And then weave that team together so that they fit together and you will have wild success. So it's always been about getting other people to be part of your story. And I just tried to apply that to business.
Welcome to the Leader's Edge podcast. I'm Zach Ewell, podcast producer here at Leader's Edge. In this episode of our Personal Lines podcast series, Associate Editor Chris Hann interviews Patrick Kinney, CEO of Keystone Agency Partners. Kinney, a past guest on the Leader's Edge podcast, shares how he first cut his teeth in the industry of risk and insurance after college, and how that led him to working at Travelers for over 3 decades. Kinney then goes on to share lessons from his life and career and advice on what to take into account when putting together a team. Give it a listen.
Okay, we are here with Patrick Kinney, the CEO of Keystone. You spend most of the year, or at least half the year now, in Rhode Island. I was asking you earlier about, you had mentioned your first job in Hartford at Travelers. Tell me about that experience. You said you had never been that far from home.
Yeah, I'd been to state college. I'd hitchhiked back and forth to college. Hitchhiking was a thing in the 70s. I had no other way to get around. You don't see people hitchhike today. My first job was a risk management information specialist, which today they would call data analytics. And they trained us in underwriting. We went through underwriting school for national accounts, property casualty underwriting school, mostly casualty. And then we went to the risk management division because in the 80s, losses were exploding. The insurance industry, the business was in a tough place. You were coming out of, the 70s and early 80s, what incredible inflation and losses. And so it was the beginning of trying to use data to manage loss costs in insurance. How do beginning of coding stuff to know where people got hurt, what happened, was it a slip, a fall, where was it, how could you prevent it? And so, it was really into the details of how insurance worked, where the claims come from, how you coded them, how you helped Sarah Lee and National Car Rental. And, some companies are long lost to history, like Knight Ridder Newspaper, Household International, but companies that were running 20, $30 million annual losses, and you were trying to figure out ways to help them prevent them and bring in, it was the beginning of the development of the risk management world and the world you see today. You started to begin then back in the early 80s. And I did that for about 4 years. And then the cool kids back then were the national account underwriters. They were the guys that went out and wrote accounts over $5 million. And I got to look at that and said, I really like what I'm doing, but I want to go try to sell this product. And Travelers thought I could. So I became a national account executive. And back then we only wrote accounts over $5 million in premium or combined losses. And we wrote employee benefits and casualty, which you'd never hear of today. And so I learned the employee benefits business and I learned the casualty business. I spent 3 or 4 years doing that. And in the late 80s, I'd gone back to school at night for my master's. Travelers back then wanted its national account executives, or the guy I worked for, Tom Tucker, he's unfortunately with the Lord, wanted us to have MBAs. So I went to get my MBA at night. And I came up with the idea of, could you bring what was then the emerging managed care, HMOs, PPOs, could you bring that to workers' comp? And could you figure out how to use medical management in workers' comp? And I wrote my, master's thesis on doing that. And I presented it to Travelers and they agreed it made a lot of sense. And I got traded to the claim department straight up in 1990 to go build it. And so I went from national accounts to the claim department to build everything you see at Travelers today called TravComp. Still there, rolled out in 2000. It is still the Travelers' main offering for workers' comp. My job, we came up with how do you integrate medical and workers' comp. We innovated nurses at the point of of triage on every claim. We integrated medical management, bill repricing, cost containment, and workers' comp.
You've been
Yeah,
in the business for 40 plus years. What
42
is it,
years.
40, 42?
Yeah, 42.
This,
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm the Forrest Gump of this business. We're buying agencies now where I worked with their fathers. The guy said, he's like, oh my God, I feel old.
well, what has kept you in the industry?
Everybody assumes insurance is boring and why would you go into insurance? Well, it's a wonderful career. The people are amazing. Anybody from the people you meet at the council,
Yeah.
I worked for years. I was the council liaison for Travelers for years, ran the whole CIAB process, worked directly with Ken Carrar for years,
Okay. Yeah.
Bob
Yeah.
Roswald of the Big I. So, one, it was always interesting. Two, it always changed. And Travelers was just a safe place for me. It was collaborative. They accepted me, and I just fell in love with it. And it was just, and it was a different world than I grew up in. I liked the people. I liked the fact that it was always different, and I always had a new challenge in front of me. There's a certain time in your career where you're picking when you want to change, and then
Yeah.
the higher up you go, eventually they decide. You don't decide if you're going up any further. And fortunately for me, I was able to, continue to move up throughout Travelers, and I just loved every part of it.
When I asked about some biographical information, you sent me what you call your
Yeah,
guiding principles. And I want to
yeah,
ask you about those.
sure.
First of all, there are 22 of them. And I'm wondering if that
Yeah.
number means something.
No, there's no relevance to the number now.
Okay.
My favorite number is 17. Um,
Never heard that before.
but
Why 17?
because it was Bobby Clark's number, play center for the Flyers,
Oh,
and,
well, that makes
and
perfect
I
sense.
loved Bobby Clark when I was a kid. He had diabetes, and he had overcome a lot. And for whatever reason, that became my favorite number. But no, there was no rhyme, no reason. They're just things I've learned over the years that I've applied and taken from my life. And when I was retiring, I was given the pleasure of addressing the whole company, which has never been given to anybody else that wasn't a chairman. And I thought I should put together what I learned over all the years. And they're just basic practical knowledge of how you get through life.
So those were put together as you were leaving Travelers?
Well, it's the way I always managed my career. And somebody asked me, hey, you know, how would you, what motivates you? What drives you? Could you put it into your thoughts? And I'm like, well, these are, and then I wrote them down, never, I worked for a gentleman that worked for Travelers for 55 years. His name was Chuck Clark, and was my mentor and an incredible guy. And he once said to me, Patrick, never worry about the nickels and you'll make a lot of dimes. Just do the job better than anybody else. Do the job better than anybody else and it'll take care of itself. And so that was always been my first guiding principle. And then you asked me why I love this business. Everything you do on earth is about people, who they are. You have to know who they are. You have to know who they love. You have to know who they care about. You have to respect them as people. And so, I think sometimes people really overcomplicate life. It's
Hmm.
about getting along with other humans and getting them to want to do something as a team that they couldn't accomplish individually. So, I had always used those as guiding principles, but then, when I retired, I thought I would go do some inspirational speaking. And so I put those together to do it, and COVID hit, and uh, nobody was hiring inspirational speakers. So, but I truly do believe each of them. I just taught a couple classes at Penn State to share with younger kids, and they resonate. They're pretty basic, but they're hard to follow.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you
And I've always
about,
believed if you make it about, my mother always made it about everybody else. And her saying was, if you make it about everybody else, it will make it about you.
Yeah.
And Alice was right on that one.
I want to ask you about some of these. There's one, for example, never be afraid to surround yourself with the best people, support them, and let
Yeah,
them shine. It seems like so
yeah,
many of these are all about the idea of collaboration.
yeah. Well, because I don't think you can accomplish anything by yourself at all.
Mhm.
Nothing. You don't build travelers because it's about one human being. And what I found is, I see managers that fail because one, they think they need to be good at everything.
Yeah.
And they tend to to be afraid of hiring better talent than they are for pieces
Uh,
they don't know. And I learned long ago that I'm not a finance guy, hire the best finance guy. I'm not an operations person, hire the best. Just never hire anybody like yourself. And then weave that team together so that they fit together and you will have wild success. I always go back to it this way. I arrived on that corner in Hartford, Connecticut. My wife still says I see myself that way. I'm a financial anorexic that I always see myself as this kid from the hood. But there was nobody there but me. And if I didn't figure out how to get other people on my boat, I wasn't eating.
hmm.
So it's always been about getting other people to be part of your story. And I just try to apply that to business.
Yeah. Let me read you one more. Guiding principle number
Yeah, sure.
17. Understand that in both your life and career, you must overcome and see the positives in change and crisis, recognize it, and lead
Yeah.
people through it. And I'm wondering,
Yeah.
is there an episode or two or three that brought you to that understanding? Okay, I'm going to try to wrap up. I just have a few more things I want to ask you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No worry.
then
Yeah,
I'm going to ask
sure.
some of your favorites. So, um, I'm wondering if you could give me three words that your coworkers would use to describe your management style.
Collaborative, inclusive, and demanding.
Okay. If you could change one thing about the insurance industry, what would it be?
The diversity inclusion part of it, I think that it's an industry where we could do better bringing in more uh, diversity and inclusion and people of color. And I think as an industry, I've chased that holy grail for 40 years. I still don't think we've been very good at it.
And a question I ask everyone, since we're talking about Leaders Edge magazine, I'm wondering, what do you think gives you your leader's edge in this business? What makes you an effective leader?
I think what makes me an effective leader, trying never to bring a bias to the problem. What's the problem? What's in front of us? What are we trying to solve for? And understanding that I think one of the most dangerous phrases in life is that is like, because it's never like what you thought it was. And I think what I bring to it is, okay, guys, let's put our head down. Let's understand the problem. Let's put one foot in front of the other and we will work our way through this. Let's not panic.
Yeah.
I've been through a lot worse than losing a renewal or not, losing an employee in life. So keeping it in reality and realizing people have lives and what you're trying to do is motivate them to have fun at what they do. Because, one of the guiding principles is if you don't love it, don't do it. If you
Hmm.
don't love it, don't do it. Don't be miserable at what you do. And I just come at that from the standpoint as I love it. Hopefully you do, and hopefully my enthusiasm is infectious.
That was Associate Editor Chris Hann interviewing Patrick Kinney. I hope you enjoyed it. For more episodes of our Personal Lines podcast series, go to leadersedge.com.